And greetings. Welcome to another Pan African Community News update. Who am I? My name is Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu. I'm your host this evening. The date is the 10th of April 2022. And we're going to be doing a run through of all the community news that's taken place over the last couple of weeks. Yes, and giving it really a Pan African perspective on those stories. So I'm flying solo this evening. So hopefully, I mean, if Oleander turns up later on, she'll co-pilot. But please bear with me. So I'll be monitoring all this chatting stuff at the same time as going through the news. It's quite a jam-packed day of stories again. 2 weeks seems to collate quite a lot of stories. It's going to be a bit of a struggle to get it done in an hour. So I'm going to try and get through as quickly as I can, even though not skimping on too much data or information. What would be useful, if there's anyone out there watching right now, if you can just let me know that you can hear us okay, that you can see the stream okay. We should be live on both YouTube and Facebook. So I'll keep looking over to the screen. If you see my eyes divert, it's because I'm looking at the screen and trying to manage all the buttons at the same time. It's quite tricky doing it. But I'm going to move to the first slide, and hopefully you'll be able to follow me and see what's going on. So if anyone's there to give me a mic check, that would be really useful. But what I'll do, I'll keep going. Drink some water, please, as well. In hope and assuming that you can hear me okay. Signal looks good. I can't see any sound meters, but it seems fine. So I'm going to start with the first story. And as usual, we normally open up with we remember. That's one of the things we're trying to do, where people who have passed away actually remembered in this section. So this week I'm going to kind of like continue on the story that we did in the last update, really, because we haven't had anyone send us any passings that have happened recently, even though there have been a few. But this one is really just to formally incorporate into the program the tribute bridge that's been placed in Leeds over the River Aire for David Olawale. And for those of you who don't know about David Olawale, he was murdered around 50 years ago. It's over 50 years ago, actually. He arrived in the UK from Nigeria. He was hounded by two police officers. He had mental health challenges. He was also homeless. And they dumped his body. Ultimately, his bodies were found in the river. And so this is one of the first earliest deaths in police custody cases that we are aware of. And the people of Leeds have actually really taken to this notorious piece of history. And it's taken for a long time for them to actually commemorate his passing, as you can see with this bridge that was erected a couple of weeks ago. So I just wanted to say we remember David. And when people say, why are names important? Why are these symbols relevant? How do they help us? Well, this is a perfect example of a piece of history that we want to commemorate, and the injustice that we want to start the route to reparation. So I want to thank everyone who's been involved in that campaign. I'm going to keep monitoring over here, so please let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. It'd be a nightmare to go through the whole program again. So the next story that I want to talk about is on a similar vein, and this is of, in fact, this is actually very good news. This is of the murderer, the former best friend and ex-president of Burkina Faso. It's the region that Europeans called the Upper Volta. His name was Blaise Compaoré, and he was finally found guilty of murdering the amazing, wonderful, one of my favorite Pan-African leaders of all time, Thomas Sankara. He was a very young man when he murdered him. And this has been an open sore for, I think it's around 30, 35 years. But finally, a trial this week announced that he was guilty. And I just wanted to say this in the remember section because, there's this idea that people who abuse African people will always get away with it. No one's going to face justice for colonialism or enslavement or police brutality. And there's a really good saying in our community you should always remember. The passage of time does not lessen the crime. And so we have a habit when people say, why do you keep going on about the past? Why do you keep talking about it? And other people say, you can't erase the past, all these kind of things. The reason why we keep going on the past, because if there hasn't been justice, is that we can pass the baton on. And that those people in the future, those descendants of us, our children, our grandchildren, their grandchildren, will one day be in a position where they have the technology, whether it's something like DNA technology, which pushed prosecutions through the roof, when up to that date it had been fingerprint technology. It'll be whatever technology, whatever determination, whatever processes to actually bring to account those people responsible for the murder and the abuse and the exploitation of any African person. So seeing President Blaise Compaoré, or his ex-president, I should say, prosecuted and charged and found guilty of murdering Thomas Sankara made my heart beat. It was a really good feeling that day to recognize that he was he wasn't there in the court. He had absconded, so he's on the run. He's a fugitive, but when he's found, he will serve time. So the next story is the one that some of you might be upset with me talking about this. I haven't spoken about this for a long time. In fact, that reminds me of another slide I didn't actually get to put inside here. There's two issues I haven't spoken about for a long time. One is COVID. I know it's a very controversial topic in our community. People don't like us or me talking about it because they know that I am not anti-vaccine. But they should also know that I am not pro-vaccine for people who don't want to take it, who don't need it, only for those who are vulnerable. But I would be remiss in my responsibilities as a community organizer if I didn't say that right now what we're seeing is an increase in the daily death rate count. And why that's important is because regardless of people believing in the vaccine or not, the amount of people that were dying from COVID-19, the figures had gone down. But once the restrictions are completely lifted, we know that it's starting to creep up, and it's gone up. It was steady at 100 a day, then it went to 200 a day, and now we're seeing over 300 deaths a day. Now, this is not a plea for people to run out and take the vaccine. If you don't want to take the vaccine, you don't take the vaccine. That's your decision, as long as you're not responsible for vulnerable adults or young people. But what I do want to say is be careful. The virus is continuously mutating. It takes on different forms. The current guise it's in seems to be more transmissible, which means more people are catching it with less fatal outcomes. The problem is that those who are having fatal outcomes tend to be those who are A, not vaccinated, or B, have underlying health conditions. And the reason why I shared this slide, you can see what's happening in the picture, it's starting to creep back up, is that there's research, there's loads of research, but this is a current piece of research just explaining that African people with underlying health conditions, things like cancer, for example, fare far worse under COVID-19 than anyone else. So I just want to put that heads up on the remember, because I don't have details of the people who are dying every day, the 350 people. I don't have their names. No one's sending them in to us, but I am pretty sure that there's going to be a large proportion of them who are coming from our community. And these are what we call preventable deaths. So please, 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 just be careful. We can have a discussion about the virus another day. And I did want to talk about the Grenfell situation, because the inquiry is coming to an end, and I'm not going to do it in this particular program, because one of the things that is actually taking place, let me try do this. One of the things that is taking place right now is this really bizarre scenario where you have the politicians rushing through the inquiry at a rate of knots. So all the fire brigade people, all the housing people have been scrutinized for weeks, but if I should have put that Eric Pickles quote in here, and I apologize for that one. If you have chance, look at the Pickles quote when he came into the Grenfell inquiry, and he makes the comment about I've got places to go. You said it's going to be quite quick. What's going on? I've got appointments and stuff like that. So I'm in an inquiry. Yeah, the 90-something people. He didn't even know it was 72 plus people. He's referring to the death count of the Hillsborough massacre, and it's just such a disdainful, outrageous, disrespectful approach. It kind of reveals how politicians view the inquiry as an inconvenience that's not going to deliver justice. So I know that I'm well overdue a Grenfell Media Watch update, and my apologies for not providing that. It literally is capacity. I literally only got in 20 minutes ago, and I'm barely about able to do this program, let alone anything else. And I had to prepare for the Child Q Community Action Group tomorrow, and I'll do that tonight. So I'm sorry. Sometimes we're going to have to do some research, but please check out Eric Bickles. But what I will do is continue with the news stories. I haven't got a mic check, so I'm hoping I'm not just talking to myself, and I'm hoping that this is actually going out live. So I'll repeat it. My name is Brother Toyin. Brother Toyin, very funny. Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu. You're watching the Pan African Community News update for the 10th of April 2022. That's right, yeah, 2022. And we're just going over the news from the last couple of weeks. Yeah, just letting you know what's going on. Excellent, thank you. I just had some feedback saying that you can actually hear us, and it's good. That's much appreciated, because trust me, it's really weird when you're talking to yourself and you have no idea if you're just kind of like going out into the ether. Now that I know I have one listener out there in the world, me and you will have this great conversation. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go into the next story, and that is unfortunately one that you're probably familiar with. This is out of the 7 people, children that were strip searched in Hackney during 2021. You know, these figures have now been released. We've now found that 6 of them were children of African heritage. Now, the borough commander for Hackney, his name is Marcus Barnett. He's described the figures as being, you know, a disproportionate figure, blah, 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 blah. So we know that this is one of the challenges that we have. But this is the problem, right? That, you know, this is 6 out of 7 strip search. We only know about this because of what happened to Child Q. That's the only reason why we're being able to see these figures and having a sense that something's not right and hasn't been right for some time. So I just wanted to share that news, and we're going to talk about a bit more about Child Q in the next couple of slides. So if I give you a quick update of what's been taking place. The first thing is that Child Q, as we know now, has launched a legal action against the Metropolitan Police and the school where she was abused. But what I've seen over the last couple of weeks taking place is people from the police, from the local child safeguarding organization, from the education authority. Well, it's not really an education authority, it's ministers or politicians who are in charge, or the director, that's the term, who are in charge of education in Hackney, have been meeting local community groups like Hackney Account and Hackney Quest, and going around to Voyage Youth, talking to them, kind of ticking the box, saying that they're doing community engagement and consultation, and that, you know, to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. Now, those groups that I've mentioned have been doing some amazing work, and I don't want you to see these politicians and these officials from the council. Some of them really mean well. I'm not for one moment saying that's not the case, but I don't want you to think that when you see their names aligned with these community groups, that these community groups are rubber stamping their statements of platitudes. Because what all these groups are saying, and I know them because I engage with them, is that they want action. They want real, tangible action and outcomes. So for those of you who are in London or nearby, we're going to try tomorrow to have a Child Q Community Action Group and have an online version, so you can join us online. It is a closed meeting. So if you want to join us, you'll have to go on my Facebook page or my Twitter page and find the registration link. We're going to close that down soon. We have quite a sizable group. Many of you are outside London. Some of you are in London. We have been meeting regularly, and we'll continue to do so, but we need more hands. We need more people to get engaged and to help out. You know, it's the boring work that no one wants to do. It's not just the protest, it's the letter writing, it's the scrutiny, it's the talking to schools, it's the working with parents. It's all this kind of work that is really incredibly boring, but crucial to securing justice for our children and their children. So it's not as fancy as going on a protest march, but it is essential. And I'm torn about the protest march. It's I for one moment I'm not going to say that going on a protest isn't a good tool or activist tool, because it is solidarity raising. It does help raise awareness. And this sister, the amazing Jacqueline Courtenay, I don't know her. She's one who organised the rally outside Hackney Town Hall a few weeks ago, and so I think there was several thousand people who turned up outside there. And she's actually now going around and championing the cause for us to have more community governors and supplementary schools for children of African heritage. And so it's a really good cause. It's just a reminder that there is still work to be done, and we cannot rest on our laurels. I just want to say thank you again. This is from, we just got a message coming in from Ethiopia, and it's good to know that this program is reaching wide and far beyond. And so greetings, thank you. Just giving you a UK perspective on what's taking place over the last couple of weeks. And yes, it is a Pan-African, Legali is a Pan-African organization. So even though we speak about news that's taking place in the UK, we have our eye on Africans wherever they are on this globe. So next story, let me see if I can find that, is one of our politician, and I was going to say beloved politician, because I know that I get on with Dawn now. For a long time, we were kind of like half and half, but she's really shown her love for our community. She really does kind of like stand up when she needs to stand up. I know there are some people who are saying that she could do more, and that is true. Dawn, you can do more. But this one really is just to send out love to her right now, because we found out a week and a bit ago that she did a mammography. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, and she had cancer. And she issued a statement explaining how scary it was, but fortunately they caught it early, and she had an operation, and now she's recovering from surgery. So our thoughts are with you. We're sending our healing energy and love, and we hope to see you back as soon as possible, doing the work that we know that you're born to do, supporting and helping, not even just our community, but all decent-minded human beings. So please rest well and kind of like come back to us soon. The next story is one of, well, I mean, this seems to be a regular theme. It's about a Metropolitan Police officer who's going to be charged after he tasered Jordan Walker Brown. He's the young man in the picture, and left him paralyzed for life. Now, I don't know much about his story. There's an absence of detail around the circumstances of him being tasered. All we know is that he was tasered and he fell off a wall. But he is going to be prosecuted, this Metropolitan Police officer, and we know that they've moved the charge. I think it's gone to GBH. So I think he was going to get away with it before, but now they've actually decided that they're going to go ahead with it. So again, we'll keep our eyes on this story, but I don't know much about that one. But one story most of you will know about is the controversy in this year's Oscars, when the actor Will Smith actually disciplined the comedian, well, I say comedian, the so-called comedian Chris Rock, after he disrespected his wife's disability. Now, Will Smith walked up to the platform after Rock made a joke. Now, Rock, for those of you who don't know, is the so-called comedian who validates other European comedians using the N-word. In fact, his most famous skit is about the N-word. So, so there are aspects of him, where he's funny, but he's not a role model. In fact, he's what we call a role model. Anyway, Will Smith, I don't think I had to go over the whole story. He walked up on the stage and he gave Chris Rock a slap. He didn't punch him. In fact, what happened was that the papers went around immediately writing that Will Smith punched Chris Rock. And a punch and a slap are two different things. A slap is a symbolic act, especially when a man is slapping another man. It's a very symbolic act in public. And he slapped him and he walked back to his chair. And then the actor Will Smith made the comment, keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth. And he repeated this twice. He was quite outraged, quite irate. Chris Rock quickly humbled himself and said, yes, I will. And from that moment onward, there has been explosion over the media demonizing Will Smith. We've had the African community itself split into halves. We have the respectability brigade saying that Will Smith kind of like let himself down, that he shamed our community. I don't know if I quite agree with that. And we have the other brigade, the ones that are supportive of defending African women. And I'm not saying the respectability brigade do not defend African women. I'm not saying that at all. But we have those which is kind of like where I sit on, who say that actually there are some things that are off limit. And I remember someone asking me, what would you have done? And I said, well, the truth of the matter is that I personally probably would have gone up to him and I would have said, you need to apologize now. I'm going to slap you right down, or slap you, and I would have given him a warning and given an option. And if he didn't apologize, I would have slapped him. But then I have to be honest, and I know that I can say that I would have had that discipline. But the truth of the matter is, if someone had disrespected a family member of mine, um, based on their disability, so this was alopecia in this case, but it could have been sickle cell, could have been anything, and made a joke about that. I don't know if I'd have the patience to give them a warning and give them the option to apologize. I like to think I would. I'd like to think that I would say, you need to fix up or I'm going to slap you right now. But, Will Smith disrespected Jada Pinkett Smith in front of her peers on a global platform, which was being broadcast all around the world. So anyway, the story, Will Smith still won the Oscar. He still won Best Actor. So in his field, that is, I think, that one of the highest accolades in his profession. Because remember that Chris Rock and Will Smith are both millionaires. So let's not lose too much sleep over this. But it's understanding how the badge of respectability can be pulled off someone, even though they danced a tune for many years, which Will has done. And so they've decided that they're going to punish him. Will resigned, by the way, from the Academy. They're going to punish him with a 10-year ban from any Academy events. So he can't attend any Oscars. I think it's a bit harsh. I think it's disproportionate. I'm not validating violence. In fact, I think when people say that Will Smith was validating violence, they're going over the top. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. There's been much written about this, but it's just important to understand that. And in the corner of the screen, you might be able to see a little icon from a film that I made many years ago called Beauty Is. And it's about, African beauty, essentially, and the challenges we have with Eurocentric values of beauty undermining us continuously, not just the women, but also us as men. And it was in part inspired by Chris Rock's Good Hair, because I actually watched that film and I was so disappointed with it and its outcome and its validation for women to continue using chemical bleaching in their hair, and it's just basically cashing in on my insecurities. I felt I need to do the job properly. That was one of the reasons why that helped me to see this film through to the end. So I'm going to leave that story there. Remember, you are live. This is Pan-African Community News Update, 10th of April 2022. So let me go on to another slide that's a bit more positive, the story wise, and this is of a portrait of the amazing actor, he's basically a legend, of Paul Robeson. And what happened, I mean, you can't even make up some of these stories, was that there was a portrait of him done in the 1930s by Glenn Philpott, and it was auctioned off, and it was recently found in a catalogue and eventually the auction itself under the title of Head of a Negro. Now, this is Paul Robeson, okay? This is one of the most famous African actors at that time. He is famous not just for his acting ability, but also for his amazing level of activism. He's up there with Harry Belafonte. I mean, we're talking about legendary. And yet he was reduced to the caption, Head of a Negro. So anyway, this you can't make this stuff up. This portrait has been found and it's been recovered, and it's going to be on display at the Palance House Gallery in Chichester. So, if you get a chance, I know Chichester is the site of the university where the amazing historian Professor Hakim Adi works. So this gives me an excuse to kind of like make my way down there, not only just to see and be schooled, if I get an opportunity to sit at the feet of Professor Adi, but also to see an amazing piece of art honoring one of our greatest ancestors. So I just thought that I'd share that story in the context, because I'm not placing Will Smith anywhere in the same caliber when we talk about actors and activism. But Will Scott was also instrumental in a project called Beyond the Will Smith Challenge, and this was a campaign that was picked up by the amazing Willa Sewa and brother Kwaku, and they ran that project. And this was about not using profanities. And I think that there is a really good point. They've made an open letter, and they make a really good point that actually Will Smith shouldn't have used those profanities on stage, or the F word, in fact. And I hear that argument. So let me go on to the next story, and unfortunately, it is going to be one highlighting the fact that and this is probably going to come as no surprise to you, that there's been a report from the IMB and the Criminal Justice Alliance, and they've actually found out that women of African and Asian heritage are facing racism inside the UK prison system. I don't think anyone is going to be surprised by that, but I think we also need to focus on, or just remember and reflect on the fact that we hear a lot about what's happening to African people on the streets. We talk about our children being strip searched. We now know about our children being strip searched in schools. We also know about the employment statistics. I spoke earlier about our propensity for deaths if we have cancer and we and we contract COVID. But it's important to understand that even when those of us who've actually been caught on the wrong side of the law go into prison and are in that process of rehabilitation, we're still experiencing racist abuse, and it ranges from disgusting comments about skin tone or hairstyles, just jokes from prison staff, to, of course, there's going to be levels of violence. I haven't actually read the report, so I don't really want to take guesses. I read an article covering it, and it explains like some of the silly things, like you've got an afro, it looks like your fingers being in the electric socket. Those kind of like what they call casual racist comments from staff. It goes beyond that. I can't remember all the comments being made, but it's important to know that this is still taking place, unfortunately. And why is that important to know? Because that's what's taking place in a secure custody, in a secure space on public streets. However, this is a story about a woman who was, I think she was an Asian woman. I got to double check that. She was sexually assaulted as she tried to stop five, well, I say youths or yobs or young people who are acting like hooligans, racially abusing an elderly man in Lincolnshire. And I haven't got, there's not much more detail on this. They're just still trying to find them. They're still trying to find information on this. But the reason why it was important to share this with you is because this has echoes of the Stephen Lawrence type murders. And I say type murders because there have been several other murders that have followed this kind of trajectory, where you have gangs of young Europeans hurling racial abuse and actually using violence to murder, to assault, to maim, from Anthony Walker. I'm going to talk about this in a few weeks' time when we talk about Stephen Lawrence Day, and I'm going to share a case of something that happened in Bristol that many of us are not aware of. So I won't elaborate on this, but I just want you to understand that this is what took place in the last couple of weeks. The woman was sexually assaulted for trying to prevent racist abuse of an elder. This is Britain 2022. Okay, so you think it's just the elderly who are being abused, right? No, that's not. So this man here, unfortunately, I've forgotten his name. My apologies for that. He was a performer. He's known as a performer. He was a performer for Earth, Wind and Fire back in the day. He's toured, kind of like all these big groups. He's now living in the UK. He was in Wales, went to this pier over here, and he was subjected to a racist attack. They slapped him around the back of his head and gave a tirade of racist abuse at him for no reason whatsoever. To its credit, the people of Wales, the bouncers, supported him and got behind him. But he is just, he came from America to live in the UK with his wife, but he is actually quite shaken and quite angry that this should take place. And this is kind of like, I think what we don't really discuss. This is what happens. This is how people experience. And this is someone, an African American, who's come to the UK and actually learning, firsthand how, despite what it looks like on films like Notting Hill, the racism on the streets of the UK, in this particular case, Wales, is still there. It's still strong. It's still toxic. And, it doesn't matter how famous you are. Doesn't matter how much wealth you have. Doesn't matter whether you're an elder, whether you're a young person, whether you're in a wheelchair. You're still going to be subjected to racist attack on the streets of the UK. And this is something, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, because obviously there's many people who are not attacked, but that doesn't have any comfort for those who are. And we need to be aware of this and to watch what the authorities do to stamp down on this. The only good thing in Wales is that we heard is that the people of Wales, those who saw and observed him being assaulted, actually stepped in. And this is a good thing. Now, I don't know if you remember that story I shared with you a few weeks ago about the young man who was stopped and searched by police officers because he was wearing a coat which the officers felt was inappropriate for the weather. So they thought that he was suspect because he was wearing the wrong coat. So therefore he must be a criminal. And so they humiliated him on the streets through this process. Well, a couple of weeks later, he was stopped by police officers again. He started filming the incident like he did the other time. This time they took the phone off him and stopped the recording, so he can't actually share it with us. And now he's in a position where he's actually starting to worry about his own safety on the streets of Croydon. He's talking about, how can I change my appearance? Maybe I need to change my hairstyle, cut off my locks. And this is, when I hear a young person, he's 20 years of age, he's just basically just come out of his teens. When I hear a young person talking about having to cut off their locks, change their appearance, so they're not getting harassed by the police, this reminds me of Child Q. A young child who's at school in a place where it's supposed to be safe, 14-year-olds being taken out of her exams and then strip search, and then not feeling safe on the streets, not feeling safe when she sees police. And what one of our members in our community action group pointed out was actually that these incidents create special educational needs, or children who then develop special educational needs. They traumatically scar them. And so this young person, I don't know his history, I don't know his story. All I know is that he is now dealing with psychological trauma, and no amount of compensation can actually reverse that scar on his persona, on his childhood. We can't revert it. We can't get rid of it. So, it was important to share this story, and to kind of like think about, what does it mean? What is really taking place? This is beyond the violence of handcuffs. This is beyond the indignation of being stopped on the street and deprived of your liberty when you've done nothing wrong. This is actually now changing the way that you conceptualize the world. And then if this young person, I'm not saying this person will, if this young person was to then engage in a life of crime or start having violent outbreaks or developmental health issues, then people would start saying, well, we knew it all along. It's because he was an African. Instead of actually looking at the cause of these problems and thinking, no, what's happened is that we've made him paranoid. You've made him frightened. You've made him this way. And this is occurring not just with young men or young, I say men, a 20-year-old is not a man, he's still a boy. But young 20-year-olds, this is happening with primary school children. And I mean it when I say primary school children. I can't share information of some of the work that our community action group is going to be doing, but this is actually taking place not just in secondary schools, but in primary schools, this kind of abuse. So, what Other stories do we have? Well, this one is actually it's a bittersweet one. I don't need to share much on this. This is the story from a writer. Her name is Sue Omar, and it's not a negative story. Actually, it's inside a glamour magazine. It's not a magazine I actually normally be reading. But I just found it quite refreshing that she was willing to share her experience as a British Somali going through Ramadan, and she makes some really amazing comments. If you get a chance to read it, you might find it interesting about what it's like, because she's a Muslim, but she doesn't present as a Muslim. She's not wearing a hijab and stuff. And so some of the stereotypical questions, some of the kind of like racially biased questions and comments that come her way, because of how she looks, because of how she presents. People won't see her as an African, because many times when people think about Somali, they just eradicate their African identity as if they come from a different planet, when they're actually part of our family. And let alone this blanket belief, or kind of like ignoring of the fact that there are members in our community who are fasting, who are going through Ramadan, and this is a deeply spiritual process. So it was good to read this article and just get, this is more commentary than news. It was just good to get an idea of what it's like to be a British Somali, actually, who's a Muslim and going through Ramadan in the UK, and to understand that actually, this tolerance that we keep hearing much about from this government, this lack of institutional racism, it's a bit of a myth, isn't it? Oh, okay. So there's a report here. I was hesitant about whether I should share this one. This is a report from the government, and it reveals that African families are 4 times more likely to suffer from food insecurities than those of the ethnic majority. The statistics follow through with some Asian communities, particularly Bangladeshi, Pakistani community. I hate just repeating statistics. When I say government report, this was from Department of Families and Health or something. I can't remember which one it was. The reason why I hesitate is because even though this is a true story and the statistics are real, is also because the logic and the numbers from the story were calculated by the Labour Party, and it doesn't mean that it invalidates the veracity of the claim. But one of the things, I mean, there's two issues here. A is the disgusting fact that it's true, and the government's aware of this and it's not doing anything. It says it's putting money into these handouts, which are loans and stuff like that. It's not doing anything. But the second thing is that this is the time when an election's coming up, because there's local elections taking place in May the 5th, that the Labour Party, the so-called opposition, then cares about us. It then starts to find research which talks about our condition, and then starts to leak it into the media, because this is the only time that that joker, Keir Starmer, actually cares about African concerns when it comes to trying to secure our vote. And so I wanted to just share this story because actually it does affect us, and it is real. And with the cost of living increasing and about to get worse because of the energy crisis, I thought it was important and responsible to share this. I also wanted to say things like to everyone as well and I mean, I haven't done a slide for this one, just as a heads up. The energy crisis that's taking place looks like it's going to be really bad. We're talking about an increase of around 50%. And so if you're like me, many of us, you kind of like, you hear about this, but you still keep using your utilities the same way you use it, because that's what you know. I mean, we have a son with sickle cell. We have to keep our house warm. So even if it's sunny, if the temperature drops, our heating goes on. That's it. We keep the house at a certain level continuously. So our fuel bills have always been through the roof. And I cannot conceptualize a 50% increase, what it's going to look like. So I suppose what I'm trying to say here is, those of you that know that your fuel bills are already too much, like ours, it's time to be thinking within the next 3 months. Because I don't know if you pay on a key, or you pay monthly, or you pay quarterly. But within the next 3 months, I would suggest that you start thinking about how to save power. Just do it now. Whether, these laptops that we use, which are on 24 hours, sometimes they don't turn off. Going into standby is fine, because then it's only consuming a few watts. But if it's on all the time, turn it off. I'm not going to say turn off your TV, because what that consumes is nothing. We should all be using energy-saving light bulbs. But I'm just going to say now, be careful. Be careful with your fuel usage until you get the next lot of bills and you can work out where the money's being wasted. This is real. Family, this is a serious crisis that's going to hit us in a few months' time. And, Labour could be leaking these stories and doing nothing about it, but we have to do something about it. Sorry for the extra commentary on this thing, but this is what brought to mind when I saw this. And that's why I felt I needed to talk about it. Any messages? No messages. Oh, okay. So it's just me in Ethiopia. Cool. You're listening to me, brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu on the Pan African Community News Update. And I'm just going through the news of the last couple of weeks. We should be live on Facebook and YouTube. I know that you can hear us, you can see us. I'm flying solo tonight. Oleander's not here, unfortunately. So I'm going to be a bit slow responding to all the stuff, but you are welcome to send comments or ask questions as well. That's one thing. I mean, we're at the stage now we're starting to think about inviting guests onto the program. It's just getting, a team together to help manage. I can't do all that stuff. My brain goes. But I'm just going through the news of the last couple of weeks. So the next story I want to talk about, if you think about what I just mentioned a couple of seconds ago, is the story of, let me just slide it across, of the elder Millen Thomas. Now, Millen Thomas has been a community, I was going to say activist, but she's been volunteering in our community as a volunteer for decades. She's based in Lambeth, and she found herself in a situation where her kitchen wasn't working and it needed repairs. She ended up being trapped in her flat. So not only use a kitchen, trapped in a flat because the stairs, the assisted stairway, and this is a lift for people with mobility issues, wasn't working. So she was being disabled in that sense through that lack of repairs. And she was eventually moved into sheltered housing. Now, she was told that repairs to her home would take 3 days. Well, she's still there 8 weeks later. These are the vulnerable people in our community, right? So, when you say a repair's going to take 3 days and you leave them in an alien space, an environment that they're not used to for 8 weeks, it starts to traumatize them. It starts to make them feel unstable. And so, like I said, these are the kind of things we're going to hear more and more because people won't be able to pay their bills. We're going to start hearing about evictions and stuff. So, I don't know what was happening in Lambeth. I mean, those of you who know, we've been facing something similar in Hackney. We've been moving from hotel to temporary accommodation to hotel. I think we've moved to like 3 or 4 hotels. We've been out of our home for since September. I'm still in temporary accommodation. This isn't my home. So I know what that feels like, that level of instability, not having enough space, not feeling secure. Please, Lambeth Council, if there's anyone there, sort out our elder. She's 83 years of age. She's a grandmother. This is outrageous and unacceptable. If you want to hear about a council that is trying to do the right thing, then let's go to Glasgow. And what we have here is the city council has actually come out and actually formally apologized for its role in enslavement, apologizing to the descendants of those who were enslaved, and promised to permanently acknowledge the city's role in Ma'afa. And it's nice to have that piece of good news. People often think that these things, and that we in the past I was speaking about what happened with Blaise Compaoré, the murder of Thomas Sankara. These things are still alive for us, so it's really good because I mean, I don't know if you can see a statue in the background. That's a picture of a governor. They call him a governor of Saint Lucia in 1800s, and kind of like people who profited off the enslavement of our ancestors. And so what's happening in Glasgow is that they're working on reports, they're working on changing the street names, People are going around suggesting names, as you can see in the image there. Someone's suggesting Rosa Parks Street, even though I'm a strong advocate that actually when you put names up that are replacing toxic symbols, they should really be local names or names that are symbolic of the justice aspect of what's taken place. I'm not saying it's not okay to name Africans in the diaspora. Of course we can, and we should do that, and it has been done. But it's good to hear Glasgow are doing this, and I know that Professor Palmer has been strongly involved. I think he's the father of Marlon Palmer, actually, brother who runs Kush Films. So it's good to see in the family that people are doing this work to respect our heritage and our culture. And you probably not heard much about this on the news because the news doesn't think this is important. Well, we do. So what else? Well, in London, the statue of this Mulligan character, which was removed from the front of the Museum of the Docklands. I was actually there when they took it down. It was actually a glorious sight, glorious day seeing them pulling it down. And this was done by the museum itself because they recognized that there was no place for it. The media started saying it was Black Lives Matter's tearing it down, which is a load of nonsense. Actually, the museum did it before anyone else chose to do it. So they replaced it, they're taking it down. It's now going to be inside the Museum of London where they're going to apparently contextualize it. So I think this is a great result. Be interesting to see what, if anything, they put back in that space. It'll also be important to see whether when they place a statue in the Museum of London, not the Museum of London Docklands, no, the other one near the Barbican, how they display it. Are they going to get a position of prominence? Are they going to clean up the adornments that were made to it by protesters? I hope not. I hope they've learned from what happened in Bristol, and that it's actually okay to keep the statue and keep it in its prostrate position with public art interventions maintained, because I think that those public art interventions are quite important. This statue has only been up, I think it was in 1999. It's not been up there for that long. Well, I say not that long, it's still too long. So that's a good piece of news. Okay, I think we just got a message coming through. Oh, thank you very much. Sound is coming through. Great link being shared. Much appreciated. Thank you. Appreciate that as well. It's good to have you there. I think we're 47 minutes in and we're 2/3 through the slides. So I'm going to try and speed up. But, you are here with me, Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu, going through some of the news over the last couple of days. And a couple of weeks. And let me pick this one up. I really wanted to share this story. This is an announcement. Again, when I say these things aren't in the news, so we have to put it in the news. I really wish I was here when this happened. And this is the launch of a plaque to the amazing Sarah Parkman Reedman. And this was unveiled 25th of March. It was organized by the amazing brother, Nubian Jack, and Tony Warner, the historian, community historian. It was launched with the help of people like Sister Yar Santiwa, Professor Paul Gilroy. It was a momentous occasion. I didn't know about the event, and I didn't see it on the news. It wasn't reported anywhere. In fact, you can only see a few snippets of it on YouTube. But nonetheless, it is important that we commemorate and remember the history and the achievements of our ancestors. At UCL, Professor Paul Gilroy runs the Sarah Parker Redmond Center, which looks into race and racialization. And those of you who are familiar with Brother Tony Warner, he runs the amazing Black History Walks. I think we spoke about him in our last update, where he spoke about the need to have links between the Caribbean and the motherland. Brother Nubian Jack has been, I know him from way back. I've still got his board game in my home, which is, he's been doing this amazing work for now. I don't know, is it decades? Just silently marking our presence, recognizing our presence, honoring our ancestors. And just because it's not on the mainstream news doesn't mean it's not important and that we can't make the news, because we are making the news, but more so we are honoring our ancestors and readdressing the balance of that negative spiritual energy that is still out there in the public realm, elevating and celebrating murderers, slavers, rapists. And when I say rapist, I'm thinking about that criminal who wrote who wrote and plagiarized the rhythm of Amazing Grace. You know, this is the counter spiritual work for that. So I want to thank you for that work, and it's really important that we recognize it's still taking place. And I think this is the last part of this section. I think there's a new archive being launched by a former, I think, no, she's former, I haven't seen on TV for a long time, but I don't watch much TV, but a TV presenter, Diane Louise Jordan. And this is an archive capturing the stories of, I've put Black Britain in quotes because obviously I don't use racializing language, but she is trying to do a positive thing in actually taking the old testimony of people of African heritage, whether they come through the Caribbean, whether they come back from the motherland, and storing it for future generations. And it's an amazing project. So this is you know, this is what I would see as good work. I don't know much about this, but it's important, if you know, that we recognize the value in our history and our stories, even if others don't. Which is why this very program exists, right? I mean, we have to talk about the things that we're doing that are important to us. And when I say that, we now know also that Sister Space, the amazing domestic violence charity for women of African heritage, launched a campaign to get enough votes to hear the proposal for Valerie's law to be enacted. And I think they secured over the 100,000 votes that's required. I think it's 100,000. It's 100,000 or 10,000. My memory's gone. Nonetheless, they reached that target, and the proposal was heard in Parliament. We had some politicians there. For those of you who don't know, Valerie Ford is she and her daughter were murdered by her former partner. She told the police that he was violent. They threatened to burn the house down, all kinds of stuff. They didn't take her seriously, and the ex-partner followed through on the threat. And yeah. So anyway, out of that tragedy, Sister Space have continuously championed the cause of women of African heritage, specifically women of African heritage. If you haven't seen their trailer for their video about why the existing system that, you know, that looks for signals of abuse, you know, kind of like is still focused on using markers that are related to European skin as not African skin. So, you know, they look for bruises when obviously you're not going to get a blue bruise in the same way on someone of African heritage. It's the same way when we talk about beauty standards being Eurocentric and that causing us psychological harm. Well, when domestic abuse threshold standards are rated on a Eurocentric value, then what happens is that women get physically a child, that they lose their lives. So, you know, just a big up Sister Space for making this proposal, pushing it forward, and bit by bit moving everything in the right direction. You're not going to hear me often talk about police officers in this positive term, and it's not to say that there aren't some amazing police officers doing good work. It's just that the work of their the misdeeds of their colleagues far, unfortunately, outweighs the good work of the minority that I see doing the good work, and I know there must be more. But what I do want to highlight is this particular case of the whistleblower Dave Eden, and he's the figure you can see on the far right of the screen. He exposed messages from Wayne Couzens, and that's the murderer of Sarah Everard that you can see, celebrating the murder of George Floyd, celebrating and making jokes about the attempted murder of Sasha. Is it Sasha? Oh, I was going to say Sasha Robinson. I've forgotten her. Sasha Johnson. I think her name's Sasha Johnson. Sasha Johnson. I didn't want to share the image of Sasha because her head is actually, in fact, I don't want to share it. It's just too traumatic. But the point is that the Metropolitan Police officers, these officers, they were part of a WhatsApp group, and they were making sick jokes. I'm not even going to repeat them. And when I say they were vile, racist jokes, they deserve more than slaps. And so I commend Dave Eden for whistleblowing. I don't know. No, I'll leave it there because it's a backhand. No, I will say it because, of course, he was part of the group, I suspect, to be able to whistleblow. But I really commend his bravery for actually doing it. I know how difficult it is to be part of a toxic climate and actually to stand up against them. And I know, it won't come without repercussions from his colleagues. But we need more police officers who have integrity to stand up and expose these corrupt officers who are doing harm. I think, and if I ever get the chance, if I ever get the time, one of the legality policies to do is to campaign for random stop and search of the social media accounts and output of serving police officers. I know it's going to make me probably the most hated person in the UK, but that's what I want, and that's what legality, when I have the capacity, will be pushing for. Yes. The clown in the middle, what's her name? Cressida Dick, the murderer of Jean-Charles Domenez. She resigned. Well, she resigned, as you know. We spoke about this a few months ago, but her last day was a few days ago. So she's now formally left the Met with a handsome payoff. I think it's £500,000, some nonsense amount like this. She's not going to have to stand up or be held to account in our lifetime for any of the misdeeds she did. She was also instrumental with Operation Trident after John Coles. She's gotten away with it, but she's no longer leading the Met. And she comes out, which has audacity to release a statement as she's leaving for the last day, saying that the politicalization of policing in the UK is eroding trust in the criminal justice system. And, as if the criminal justice system has not, by its own self, by its own misdeeds, with the corruption that leads all the way from the Met to the IOPC, it goes beyond the Met, to be honest with you, has not already done that work itself. I know some really good police officers, and it's weird saying that, but there's some really good officers who want to get rid of racism inside the force. They want to eradicate sexism. They want to eradicate Islamophobia and homophobia. They want to get rid of it, but the culture is too strong, And so, anyway, I know we're short on time. Let me move on. I think we should be in the next section, which I'm going to call community reviews. Let me take a sip of water. Any comments? Anyone want to say anything before I go on? Bear in mind, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Remember, this is your program. I know I'm going over the hour mark, so hopefully I can do the next sessions in around 15 minutes. So thank you for bearing with me and staying with us if you are still here. I call this community reviews. It's not quite reviews this week because I haven't gone to see any plays and stuff, but I probably will be doing, and I'll explain it later. So the first thing I'm going to say is that the next Child Q Community Action Group meeting is taking place tomorrow between 6 and 8:30 in Hackney. If you are interested, please go on to my Facebook page or Twitter page, find the registration link, put your details in, do it really quickly, because once this program finishes, I'll probably have some dinner because I'm pretty exhausted and tired, and then I'll go through the work of adding the new, because we've had some new registrations. I have seen registrations, I just haven't had a chance to send and compose all the emails for it or send the agenda. I get it. I'll do it tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, even though tomorrow morning I'm at work and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that's taking place. Thank you. And there is going to be a follow-up to the amazing youth session So those of you who know young people in Hackney who are not part of an organization, that want to be part of an organization, please get in touch. That event's going to be on the 20th of April. Again, it's going to be a closed session. I know some of you thinking, oh, well, but the last time you had all these people down, you had a Carla, you had blah, 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 and they're not you people. But they, Carla is a young person. Leroy isn't a young person, but they were listening to the young people. They were supporting the young people. This is this session that's taking place. The reason it's closed is because it's not for photographs to be leaked and the pain of our young people to be shared and tweeted and profited on. This is for us to actually work out action plans. And it's been led, as usual, by the amazing Hackney account. I can't take the credit, just providing the space in the EdPed Centre, and then the amazing team at Hackney account, Youth Voyage. And so that's what's going on with ChildQ. You might not see anything in the news about what's taking place with ChildQ, but rest assured our community is still working on these issues, and we have a lot of information, but to be honest with you, we want action. We want to see tangible outcomes, and that unfortunately takes a bit of time. The work is ongoing, please trust me. So what am I doing if there's a community review section? Well, hopefully on Tuesday, we'll be going out to see, I say we, myself and the wonderful, beautiful Oleander. It's not here with me today, unfortunately. We're going out to see a play called For Black Boys Who Have Considered Suicide When the Hue Gets Too Heavy. It's taking place in the Royal Court. I'll give you a feedback after I've seen it. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been to a theatre for a long time. I do love theatre. I love film. I mean, I love cinema. I love theatre, and I just haven't gone to anything. I mean, literally, I think the last thing what I see was I saw Dune. No, I saw Batman. That was the last thing I saw in the cinema. But when it comes to the theatre, I haven't seen anything for ages. So hopefully, slowly but surely, once I'm confident with arrangements around things like COVID and ventilation, we can start seeing cultural performances. That's what I'm interested in, the cultural performances in places. This is a great play, or what I've heard about is going to be a great play and performance. The only thing I will say about the Royal Court is that I find it was really expensive, and bring it a bit closer, bring it down to Arcola, bring it, make it. But if people are eating off that, if the actors, it's been written, produced, directed, with young Africans involved, if they're eating off that, then it's worth paying it. But yeah, what next? This was an amazing story that was shared with me. I had no idea this took place, and I just thought I had to let you know about it. This is a retreat organized by Trey Agman. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly, which is in its second year. And it's a retreat for African women only. And it's for them to heal from racial exhaustion and specifically just to experience joy. They could do painting and dancing and yoga. And it's taking place again this year. It's called Exhale. I don't know anything else about it. So please, I haven't had a chance to go online and search for it. So please do that work. But if you're an African woman and you just kind of want a space where you can just kind of break bread with other sisters and just kind of like I was just talking with Jules. This is the beauty again, isn't it? It's like the reason why I'm exhausted and tired, I just came from the FOAD town hall. Now, FOAD stands for Family of African Descent. And it's a network that's been running for around 10 years, and it's only for families of African descent. So, if you are one and you're a member, you can join. And it was beautiful. I don't have many pictures to share with you, but we had our children there. That's where my wife still are. They're still there. They had a town hall, we had breaking bread. They're probably now doing the candy dance. I'm not one of those social people, so I'm the nerd who comes here to do the work while everyone's having fun. I'm a bit too serious. A bit of a killjoy, unfortunately. But yeah. We were just having a conversation, and we were just talking about how important it is to have a space to go to where we are normal. And, we were just talking about how some of our children are leaving the UK and actually starting lives, abroad in the Caribbean, in the motherland. And actually they still have challenges to face, but it's not racism. That's the least. I mean, I'm not saying we don't have issues with colorism, but it's not racism. So this retreat sounds like a wonderful idea. And, it makes me always want to be an African woman. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with African women. God, before anyone takes it the wrong way around, I love being an African man. That's the issue. I just do, because I'm an African man. I appreciate African women, but I would love a retreat. Maybe I should sort something like this for brothers. Yeah, but then anyway, let me just move on. I get myself in trouble. Okay. Talking about the Caribbean, here's an amazing story, again, about the need for us to celebrate and elevate our own history, our own cultural icons, our own days. It's within our gift. We don't need to wait for someone to do it for us. And so the Governor General of Jamaica has declared the 8th of April National Chief Tiaki Day. And again, this is just us self-determining. Taki is, for those of you who don't know, he was an ancestor, came from Ghana, resided in Jamaica. And he led an uprising that inspired, was said to help inspire the Haitian Revolution. And so, there are already markers in Jamaica to him, like there's a Taki school and streets and stuff like this. But having a national day to celebrate him and elevate him, this is a really good thing. I mean, I wish I had the time. I could go into the history. His history is quite one of, there's a bit of controversy. It doesn't take away from the magnificence of the rebellion, even though it failed. Like I said, it created that momentum that led to the Haitian Revolution. Back while he was in Ghana, unfortunately, he was involved on the wrong side of enslavement and assisting and collaborating with Europeans in sending our captive Africans to our enemies. It's really bizarre because, and this is why I really would love to do a history lesson. I mean, I'm not a historian, but to do a history lesson on these issues, because in Jamaica, he was, what stopped him, what put him down, was actually the Maroons and the British. So they had a pact. This is one of the things. So you have people in our history who are heroes, heroines. So of course the Maroons we revere as warrior kings and warrior queens, and they do some amazing things. But of course, history is quite complicated, and so at some stage, there was a level of making a deal with those people that who are oppressing us, and leading to us often getting involved in fights amongst each other. So I love the fact that our history is so complex, and that we have this weighing things up, and we recognize that actually, people change, people learn, people grow, and is this act the one that leads towards where we should be? So Chief Tiaki is like that, and I have to share this because before I don't elevate human beings generally. It's just a principle of mine. As a child, I never had posters of any human being up, but one, Jeremy Lewis, and then Mtume. Well, that's because I was a musical nerd, and none of I love Star Trek, so I had the Enterprise. But I tend not to do that. So it's just important to understand that even those that we elevate do have flaws, and that's okay. All humans have flaws, and so when we kind of like talking about remembering them, we're remembering that complexity. Oh, thank you. Let me just, there's been a message. I'm going to put it online. Give thanks, Sister Amma. She's just shared, hopefully you can see on the screen, that there's an article on the Tre Ajiman retreat. So you can find an email at the end of the article. So please, if you have the time, check that out. This is something we need to have, these kind of spaces for ourselves. So the email's there. It's on the Metro website. A retreat for Black women aims to create joy, space for joy. So please check it out. I don't know how much it costs. Don't know where it is. I've seen the building, but it's just something to think about. And it does cross my mind that I can't say I will do it because I've got too many things on my plate. But we do need to do that. And brothers, we need to have that space to talk. And I know brothers in a space without sisters will just go nuts. But we need it, right? We need that healer space. We need those, father to father, that kind of like brother to brother space as well. And then we need a collective one. Anyway, moving on before I get myself in trouble, as I always do when I talk about this particular. Oh, I can hear the door. Might have my family returning home. Okay. And so this is the last part of the program. And this one is what we call community champions. So I'm going to start with, I think I opened up with this. It wasn't the first story, but I did speak about remembering Thomas Sankara and the prosecution, the successful prosecution of Blas Compare. But when I say community champions, I think we need to have, I don't even know how to do it. We just need to big up to the max and celebrate the work of I think it's a CIJS and ICJS Lawyers Collective. And this is the team of lawyers who've been working pro bono on the international campaign for justice for Thomas Sankara. It's been decades. They've been working for 25 years on this. The family members of Sankara, his widow, have been on this. And it's been an international, when we talk about Pan-Africanism working, it's been an international project. So, of course, we've had lawyers in Burkina Faso working on it, but we've had activists and lawyers giving up free time to bring this case to this point right now. And they, as far as I'm concerned, are community champions, because we always hear about The Hague. I mean, I don't know if you're listening to the tragedy that's happening in Ukraine, and you're hearing much about how the West is taking photographs for war crimes against Russia, against Putin, for The Hague, as if The Hague is some kind of beacon of morality, as if, you know, it's not being politicized, if they're not, you know, kind of like using it to ostracize Africans that have gone against European ideologies, or actually worked in interest of African people in ways that they don't approve of. But I love the fact that this campaign, which was for Africans, by Africans, and delivered for Africans, has been successful. And even though it took 25 years, you know, they did it. And that's something we should treasure, and we should learn from. That we can prosecute, we can take our enemies to trial. So all these deaths in custody, you know, where we keep waiting, is the Grenfell, you know, where we're waiting for an establishment judge to pass judgment, and we're going to abide by that judgment. We're going to hold that as if it's some kind of virtue of, or morality, it's some kind of paragon of morality. It's madness. We have to be actively a part of the process for it to have any authenticity. So the next slide, next community champion I want to talk about is these two brothers, Kobe Adam and John Boyega. And now you might remember John Boyega from Star Wars. I've been watching the Star Wars. No nerdy stuff, Tommy. Ain't got enough time. John Boyega, he was the stormtrooper in Star Wars, who, you know, people start giving racist comments. How can a stormtrooper be, an African? And that's how he became mainstream focused attention. But for many of us, it was his commentary through the Black Lives Matter protests when George Floyd had been murdered. And he did that thing, which is so rare of those of us in these positions of high profile. And he just spoke his truth, which was our truth. It's the same thing like Danny John Jules. You might know Miss Cat from Red Dwarf, another amazing brother. Despite, we might not agree with the way people express themselves. So Will Smith might have used vulgarities, whatever. We don't always agree with the way people express it. But what I love are those in our community that back our community and use their platforms of elevated celebrity, because I don't use the term celebrity to define human beings. I call them media personalities, but they use those platforms to speak our truth and to inspire others. So why are they being honored in this section as community champions? Well, Kobe Adam, you might know him from, if you see the brother on the right, on the left, he's from Mallory Blackman's the televised version of Noughts and Crosses, that amazing series. It was an amazing book set. The BBC did a version of it. He's on there, but he's got a film studio called DPK Studios. And what John Boyega did is that he teamed up with oh god, it begins with C. He teamed up with is it Converse? One of these brands, I can't remember what it was, but he used them, and Kobe used Sky Films to create a platform where they would get involved in development of filmmakers, of people of African heritage. So essentially, anyone who wanted to get behind the camera, in front of the camera, produce a film, direct a film, they started having meetings with them, or starting greenlighting their short films. And so with Kobe's project, we started seeing some short films, and with John Boyega's program, we started seeing meetings with these young creators around the table, learn the skills, and him setting them up for a future where we're not just in front of the camera as Totty or as fluff, but actually as skilled individuals learning a profession with a craft. And it's amazing. And often, you know, when I talk about kind of like community champions, we I don't like often focusing on people who are media personalities, because often their biggest, you know, contribution to us, our community, is just their fame. And they've not done anything other than that. But I like it when people give back, and I'll always respect that and honor that. So, you know, I just want to big them up. And let me just whiz through, because I know I'm taking the time, and I said I'll do some 15 minutes, and we're exactly at 1 hour 15 minutes. I spoke about Kobe's project, and one of the things that's come out of that is a film by Nikki Fabemi, and she's created this new story, this new short called Why Me. I'm trying to get a hold of it. It was broadcast on Sky Films or Sky Art Channel, I think it was, last week. Hopefully they'll repeat it. Hopefully, you know, I can see it. And it's just a film about sickle cell, and it's part of what they call the unearthed narratives. And she wrote it, directed it, she's filmed, you know, she's in it, she's acted in it. Big her up, basically. And like, you know, just kind of like from what I'm hearing, it's just showcasing, you know, the troubles and challenges that young people have, and also recognizing that sickle cell is part of that. It reminds me that I actually started a film before I started my PhD, all those, what, 4 years ago. I actually started a film with an amazing crew, you know, which was about a brother falling in love with a sister. He had sickle cell, which normalized it. And, you know, and I can't wait to get back in the editing suite and actually finish that film. It'll probably sound a bit dated because it was recorded, you know, it was filmed like I said, 4 or 5 years ago now. And unfortunately, because of the nature of what I do, my personal projects, my creative projects always take a back seat to my community work. So, I mean, it's just one of the nightmares. I do feel, and I apologize to everyone who is involved in that project. And thank you for your patience putting up with me doing this kind of stuff whilst you gave your all in that film project. But like I said, this is a big up for Nikki Fabemi, because she's just gone ahead and made this film with those amazing brothers I just spoke about, you know, who are elevating filmmakers. And it's so important that we do that. I think we're on to the last couple of slides. And so the next one is for Kelly Morgan and Bianca Daniel. And they're the founders of something called Melanin Markets Manchester. And, you know, this is just a simple idea, but a brilliant one. And it's just like a space. They hire a massive space out, and they celebrate African art and culture. And they're doing this again in May. I think this is, again, the second one. So these things are taking place outside London. But we just need to recognize that actually, you know, we do these things. Just because they're not on television, just because we don't hear on the radio or see them in the newspapers, doesn't mean that we're just placidly waiting for handout. We are doing these things. I think there was like hundreds of stores that took place last year when they did it. They generated something like £50,000 in sales. I mean, don't quote me on the number, but it's amazing that they're doing it. It reminds me of the days of Adornment or Natural November and all these kind of things going on. We need to continue. There was a market, what do they call it? The black market in Hackney, where every couple of weekends, you know, you can actually come and get, you know, stalls and products from African entrepreneurs. It's gone now. We're no longer favourite of the month. I don't know why it stopped. But when that happens, we have to continue with the baton. We cannot keep relying on, you know, these politicians to have our back. Some of them will, but many of them won't. So I just want to big up these two sisters for doing this work. And I think this was the last community champion, and this one just brought a smile to my heart. Not the outcome, but just what they did. It's 57 children from a school called Kingfisher Hall Academy. It's a primary school. They're aged between 10 to 12, I think it was. And they wrote a letter to the Home Secretary. They'd been reading this book by Benjamin Zephaniah about Windrush children. And so they read it and they thought, wow, we need to do something about this. What can we do? So they all wrote a letter, personalized letter, not one template, each of them writing individually to the Home Secretary, calling for justice for, you know, Windrush, for those people who have, you know, suffered under the disgusting policy which the government is still maintaining. They say, that Windjoshes can never happen again, but we having ancestors who are passing away, losing their lives, who still haven't received compensation. Unfortunately, Priti Patel just ignored them, but I won't do that. And I want to thank each and every one of those 57 children for actually just getting engaged in this, just doing this, just doing some work, just learning how to start that process of actually recognizing that they have agency and there's something they can do to make the world a better place. Doesn't matter about their age, doesn't matter who they are, where they come from. They see something's wrong, call it out. It's amazing. So this is the final slide as ever. I want to say thank you for putting up with me. I think 1 hour, 20 minutes over. I'm going to have a strict rule. It means I can't cover as many stories. It's going to make it harder. I'm going to need you to tell me. I'm going to cut the stories down in half for the next program, which means I'm going to miss out a lot of things, which makes it hard to choose and get the balance right. You're going to have to tell me if you're happy with that, because I am feeling tired and flagging, and I still got loads of work to do even after this. But I want to thank you, Brother Colin, our community researchers. You know who you are out there doing some amazing work. Support. I couldn't do this without you, as well as those Legally supporters who make those donations monthly. Again, I thank you for your trust in me. I know I haven't written a newsletter. It will come, and your donations are helping to keep this all going alive. Trust me on that. But most of all, I also want to thank all of you out there in our community, those who are even unaware of what we're doing, but still doing stuff anyway, because it's the right thing to do. I want to, it's not just those lawyers, the amazing lawyers who secure justice, but those children, in schools who are not getting the fame, not getting any glory. They're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. So as ever, I'm going to close with those words. I can see my wife creeping up behind me. Do you want to come, honey? With those famous words, here she is.
Hi, everybody.
There we are.
Hi, everybody.
And I'm going to say, as ever, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.
Ashe.